Hello, mind mappers, and welcome to the video. Today we're going to be going over Getting Grit by Carolyn Adams Miller, the evidence-based approach to cultivating passion, perseverance, and purpose. And this was a really great book all about setting big goals and doing what it takes to get there. We dive deep into what it means to be in touch with your purpose and some techniques that you can use to cultivate grit or perseverance in your own life. First, let's get into the introduction. Getting Grit. I pulled out a quote here that I believe gives us a good overview of what we can expect to learn today. In this book, I share research and ideas about how we can boost the character strengths and behaviors that we see in gritty people. And if you don't know what gritty people means, we'll go over that a little bit inside of the mind map. I've even come up with a term that I use to describe the type of grit that I think elicits the greatest results: authentic grit. I define this as the passionate pursuit of hard goals that awes and inspires others to become better, flourish emotionally, take positive risks, and to live their best lives. My overarching goal in this book is to demonstrate that building authentic grit isn't just possible, but it's our duty to do so if we want to live in a world that upholds standards of excellence and shuns quitting. We need resilience, optimism, determination to overcome setbacks that threaten our flourishing and peace. And we need to arm the next generation, the first in the US history, to be predicted not to have the same standard of living as their parents, with the science of happiness and the tools to persevere towards their best and most meaningful lives. I believe that we can begin to imagine and create a world that makes us proud and that uplifts us to be bolder, more tenacious, and more inspirational. When we learn to set the right goals and we see them through to the finish line, become comfortable with discomfort, and use setbacks as springboards, we can live with passion, with purpose, and perseverance. It will be the reality that more of us live and share with others so that we can all become better versions of ourselves. And of course, that's really what this entire YouTube channel is all about: inspiring people to become better versions of themselves while I am also chasing being a better version of myself. And the point that I really got from this quote here was the passionate pursuit of hard goals that inspires others to become better is really kind of the goal that we should all be aiming for. And that's authentic grit. That's what Carolyn is calling authentic grit, and what we're talking about here today inside of the book. Carolyn says that authentic grit isn't just possible, but it's our duty to live up to. And I tend to agree with this. It's a great ideal to uphold, and it's what we admire in our heroes as well. She also points out that grit might be now more important than ever. The world, of course, demands grit if you're going to do great things. Sticking to a long-term goal, overcoming obstacles, and doing so in an increasingly competitive environment are really the name of the game in today's world. But with more distractions and escapes than ever, many of us, in my opinion, are losing the skill of grit, losing the skill of perseverance and persevering through difficult obstacles. Carolyn Miller is our guide today, and she's studied with some of the best people in positive psychology, people that we've done book reviews on already, like Angela Duckworth, who literally wrote the book on grit. You can check out that book on this channel as well as Martin Seligman, kind of the godfather of the whole movement of positive psychology, who wrote one book called Flourish, which I recommend that you check out on this channel as well. Carolyn has put some of the most amazing concepts that are inside of these books and inside of different articles, and of course inside of her own research, into a very practical guide for us to getting grit. I know you'll enjoy and benefit from this book, and I'm happy to bring this for you today. Before we get into the ideas that I've pulled out of the book, let's talk a little bit about mind mapping. You can get the most of these mind maps by following along. Find the process of how I mind map plus all 50 plus mind map templates, including this one, at the link down below in the description. You can follow along and it will help you learn more, remember better, and apply these books to your life. And if you're looking for a little bit of a shortcut and you want to learn more about particular topics like habits or goal setting or learning, then you can check out the masterclasses that I have on the mindmapguide.com. Essentially, there are dozens and dozens of books distilled down into one 2 hour long masterclass to give you the best ideas on the particular topic from some of the world's brightest minds. First, let's get into the three keys, a really important point from the book. Duckworth found that people who had distinguished themselves in overcoming multiple challenges over many years to sustain the pursuit of something that was important to them had several critical qualities in common. Three in particular. They had passion, they had perseverance, and they had long term goals. Passion. They were lit up from within by a cause or an activity that electrified and energized them, sometimes from a very young age. They weren't guided by what others wanted, and instead, they were single mindedly focused on something that crowded out other interests, gave their lives meaning, and filled them with a sense of purpose. And perseverance. They weren't just resilient in the short run, they had bounce back quality that existed through years of emotional droughts, physical and financial setbacks, and discouragements that would cause many people to give up. And finally, they had long term goals. They attached a goal to their passion that might have seemed unrealistic to some, but that became their immovable North Star. And in some cases, this led to world renowned or Olympic fame. But for others, the results were quieter, from regaining the ability to walk after a crippling injury, to maintaining the hope of being exonerated after wrongful incarceration, to remaining clear and sober in the hardest of circumstances. So, again, there are these three keys to cultivating the classic type of grit that Angela Duckworth first brought forward in her book, Grit. Originally studied and written by Angela, Carolyn is going to look a little bit further into grit in this book. And we're looking more on a specific kind of grit that we want to build, something that we talked about already before, calling it authentic grit. Not all grit is created equal, but all grit does involve these three characteristics. And what I'm going to invite you to do now is to look at these three different characteristics in your life right now. Passion. Are you lit up by a cause or an activity? If not, you might want to check out these couple of books that I really enjoyed on purpose to help light that fire underneath you. I really love The Happiness of Pursuit, Lead the Field, and The Path of Least Resistance. I recommend that you check out those videos on the channel. The Happiness of Pursuit is by Chris Guillebeau, amazing author. Lead the Field is by Earl Nightingale, again, amazing author. And The Path of Least Resistance is one that you might not have heard of before, by Robert Fritz. A really amazing book. Really recommend you check that one out for sure. The Too Long Didn't Read is that there are a lot of ways to find your purpose. But first, you need to start the search. Perseverance. Where are you at right now with perseverance? Do you currently persist even through failure? Or do you give up at the first sign of defeat? If not, I recommend that you check out some Stoic philosophy. For example, Epictetus or How to Be Free on this channel is one that I really recommend. Marcus Aurelius or How to Think Like a Roman Emperor on this channel is also a great place to start with Stoic philosophy. And finally, let's look at your long-term goals. Do you feel guided by your long-term goals as if they are your North Star? Or are you kind of waiting around without actually knowing where you should be going? If not, some of the best books on goal setting that I've found are Goals by Brian Tracy, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, and Be Unstoppable by Alden Mills, as well as you can check out the Goals Masterclass on themindmapguide.com. The main overview here in the three keys is that we need to cultivate passion, perseverance, and long-term goals. This book, this mind map, goes over it quite in depth, but if you want some extra resources, check out the ones that I've recommended. Our next idea here is the bell, and I've highlighted this one here in white because I believe it's one of the biggest ideas in the entire book. Even just taking this idea away would be very valuable for you. In 2014, at the University of Texas at Austin commencement, Admiral William McRaven brought the house down with his inspirational 18-minute talk 10 Ways to Change the World. In it, he describes the ordeals of SEAL trainees, including punishing runs in freezing cold weather, navigating underwater in pitch black conditions, and being forced to do extra calisthenics after multi hour endurance sessions. Admiral McRaven said, "If you want to change the world, you have to sing when you are up to your neck in mud, go down obstacles head first, and punch the shark in the snout when you're underwater alone and scared." He finishes his speech with the last 10 change the world points, noting that everyone in the SEAL training wants to quit at some point, but they don't believe they have what it takes to persevere. Finally, in SEAL training, there's a bell, a brass bell, that hangs in the center of the compound for all students to see. All you have to do to quit is to ring the bell. Ring the bell and you no longer have to wake up at 5 o'clock. Ring the bell and you no longer have to do the runs, the obstacle course, the PT, and you no longer have to endure the hardships of training. Just ring the bell. If you want to change the world, don't ever ring the bell. Of course, we've all heard the story of the Navy SEALs before and how they have the bell, and that really kind of just getting to the next day is kind of one of the secrets of not ringing the bell. But of course, ringing the bell would be easy. Ringing the bell looks different for each of us. Giving up on your idea, goal, or passion certainly is the short term, easy route. No more long days of work, no more failure, no more uncertainty. But long term, when you look back, would you regret ringing the bell? Grit isn't about not feeling the hardships that others feel. It's about feeling them and knowing that continuing anyway is the best route for you. And a little bit of a side note, not inside the book, I actually wanted to talk about Admiral McRaven's 10 lessons. I went and watched this here on YouTube, and it was really, really impactful. I just wanted to quickly go over the 10 lessons from Admiral McRaven because I think it fits well inside of this book. So here we go with the first 10 lessons here from Admiral McRaven's speech, his commencement speech, also here on YouTube. If you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. Sounds pretty familiar to some of us. If you can't do the little things right, you will never do the big things. Number 2 is if you want to change the world, find someone to help you paddle. You can't change the world alone. You'll need some help. And to truly get from your starting point to your destination takes friends, colleagues, and the goodwill of strangers and a strong coxswain to guide you. If you want to change the world, measure a person by the size of their heart, not the size of their flippers. SEAL training was a great equalizer. Nothing mattered but your will to succeed. Not your color, not your ethnic background, not your education, and not your social status. If you want to change the world, get over being a sugar cookie and keep moving forward. Sometimes, no matter how well you prepare or how well you perform, you'll still end up as a sugar cookie. For failing the uniform inspection, the student in basic SEAL training had to run fully clothed into the surf zone and then, wet from head to toe, roll around in the beach until every part of your body was covered with sand. The effect was known as the sugar cookie. You stayed in that uniform for the rest of the day, cold, wet, and sandy. There were many students who just couldn't accept the fact that all their effort was in vain. Those students didn't understand the purpose of the drill. You were never going to succeed, and you were never going to have a perfect uniform. If you want to change the world, don't be afraid of circuses. Every day during training, you were challenged with multiple physical events, long runs, long swims, obstacle courses, hours of calisthenics, something designed to test your mettle. Every event had high standards, times that you had to meet, and if you failed them, those standards, your name was posted on a list. And at the end of the day, those on the list were invited to a circus. A circus was 2 hours of additional calisthenics designed to wear you down, to break your spirit, and to force you to quit. Life is filled with circuses. You will fail. You will likely fail often. It will be painful. It will be discouraging. And at times, it will test your very core. Number 6 is if you want to change the world, sometimes you have to slide down the obstacles head first. And that one is pretty self explanatory. Number 7 is if you want to change the world, don't back down from sharks. There are a lot of sharks in the world. If you hope to complete the swim, you'll have to deal with them no matter what. If you want to change the world, you must be your very best in the darkest moment. At the darkest moment of the mission is the time when you must be calm, composed, when all your tactical skills, your physical power, and all your inner strength must be brought to bear. If you want to change the world, start singing when you're up to your neck in mud. If you've learned anything in my time traveling the world, it is the power of hope, the power of one person. Washington, Lincoln, King, Mandela, and even a young girl from Pakistan, Malala. One person can change the world by giving people hope. If you want to change the world, don't ever ring the bell, bringing us right back to grit. In SEAL training, there's a bell, a brass bell, hangs at the center. We went over this already before. All you have to do is quit, and you ring the bell. Ringing the bell, and you no longer have to wake up at 5 o'clock. Ring the bell, and you no longer have to do the runs. Just ring the bell. If you want to change the world, don't ever ring the bell. So that was the bell, kind of grit accompanied by Admiral McRaven. Really great speech. Recommend that you check it out. Now we're going to move back into getting grit. We're going into authentic grit. Another great idea. To qualify for the label of authentic grit, it's not enough to be resilient, persistent, and passionate. I believe that gritty behavior is a positive force only when it awes and inspires others to want to become better people and imagine greater possibilities for themselves. People who display it make us wonder, what if I went after hard things? What if I devoted my energy and time to cultivating my passions? They make us wonder, what if? What's possible? Authentic grit brings out the best in other people. Authentic grit makes the world a better place. Something we should all aspire to do is to hold ourselves to a gritty ideal and share that with others. Think of some of your heroes or your ideal sages, as the Stoics might say. They went through hardships and persevered, and that's why we really love them. Think about people like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, David Goggins. Part of their story is the hardships that they had to go through. And that's very, very important. Remember, the definition of authentic grit, the passionate pursuit of hard goals that awes and inspires others to become people that they want to be, to flourish emotionally, to take positive risks, and to live their best lives. That's what we're really here for. Grit isn't good enough just for grit's sake. Perseverance isn't good enough just for perseverance' sake. Authentic grit helps other people become their best selves. Our next idea is called dream. I've also highlighted this in white because I believe it's very important. It all starts with a dream. People who come to me for help have a dream to go beyond their normal boundaries, to do something that's significant and fulfilling, something they will regret not pursuing if they never make the attempt. There are sometimes people who others would describe as unsuccessful, who don't necessarily have to change anything to have a comfortable existence for the rest of their lives, but who have hunger to dig deep and go further with a cherished goal, and sometimes even a hidden one. My first question is simple and to the point. What's the best possible outcome of us working together? Just using the words best and possible awakens someone's senses to the idea that anything can happen and that whatever that thing is, it can be magnificent. This is the point people usually get right in the point and express some large, difficult goal. For example, I want to become an inspirational leader who helps people find their purpose and bring it to the work in a new way. I want to stop waiting to be happy and start doing things that will make my life more fulfilling. I want to change my approach to work so that I can spend more time with my family and my friends. Or I want to become an entrepreneur and to control my own future. What's the best possible outcome? Such a great question. It's a great question that can help you go from essentially not knowing where you're going to zeroing in on your dream and your passion. You remember from before, the three things to cultivating grit are passion, perseverance, and long term goals. Personally, I've stolen this question. I'm using it every time that I meet a new coaching client. And what's the best possible outcome of us working together? It's such a great goal. If you're into coaching or if you're someone that helps other people in a leadership role, it's a really, really great question to ask. This one question, I find it lights people up and it gets them to open their mind to potential possibilities, getting them away from base questions like, how do I read more books or how do I apply this and really actually make a change in my life, into their true deep purpose. Instead of how do I read more books, it's how do I help the people in my life? How do I grow a really big business that is actually a positive sum for the world? Here's how you can steal it as well. First, ask yourself, what's the best possible outcome of my life? Second, given what your best possible outcome of your life is, ask yourself, what's the best possible outcome for this year? And then, of course, third, let's goal set to the moment. Ask yourself, what's the best possible outcome that I can have today? That's going to be different every single day, by the way. So you've got one big overarching life best possible outcome, and then you've got your 1 year best possible outcome, and then your daily best possible outcome might change every single day. Ideally, all those daily best possible outcomes are eventually adding up into that one big overarching lifetime best possible outcome. Our next idea here is one that I think a lot of people need to hear. Happy first. I felt like I'd entered an alternate universe when I read the lengthy research paper by three of positive psychology's top luminaries called The Benefits of Frequent Positive Affect. It was the fall of 2005 when I was at the MAPP program at Penn, and I was reading more and more research that helped me to understand exactly what it takes to flourish and succeed in life. This paper, though, was a doozy. It upended all of my previous thinking. In one of the most profound slam dunk findings I've ever read, these three researchers had parsed and reviewed hundreds of studies on success in life to discover the exact opposite of what I and many others had mistakenly believed was true. We don't become happy after we succeed at something, but rather we succeed at something because we are happy first. Their comprehensive overview of longitudinal, quantitative, correlative, and causal studies on success in friendship, health, finance, work, and all other aspects of life helped me understand why achieving certain external goals when I was younger never made me happy for very long, and I had instead left me empty than before. The grades, the awards, the schools, the scores, and the right weight never brought me the lasting satisfaction I had thought they would, and now I can see why. If I had access to these findings during my worst of my bulimic behavior, maybe I would have taken a different approach to my diet and health and wouldn't have done so much damage to myself. And I think that's a really profound statement at the end. So many of us are doing damage to our mental health, our physical health, our financial health in the aim of actually accomplishing something at the end. And really, what we're talking about here is that even that thing at the end isn't necessarily going to make you happy. So it's more important to focus on being happy now. In essence, if we want to succeed, grit, of course, is important. And that's what we're talking about here today. But it all starts with happiness. And why does it all start with happiness? Well, in my opinion, it's because we're playing the long game here. We want to succeed at something truly great, accomplish our goals, our vision. We're going to need to commit for the long term. And when we're playing the long game, the light at the end of the tunnel is only motivating for so long. That big goal is only motivating for so long. This is one reason why I think people give up on their goals so quickly. They're very motivated by the light at the end of the tunnel in the short term. But after a while, inside of the discomfort, unhappiness, or lack, it's not easy to keep going for the potential prize at the end. The good news here is that there is a way out. It's happiness in the moment. Instead, we need to find a way to be happy in the moment rather than just focusing specifically on the one big goal at the end or the thing we need to accomplish. The good news here is that Carolyn mentions the topic, uh, and essentially, I've got multiple books all about this that are on the channel. We've got Flourish by Martin Seligman, all about flourishing in the moment, how we can live a life full of happiness in the moment. And of course, we also have The Myths of Happiness by Sonia Lyubomirsky, one of my absolute favorite books on the channel. And she was, funnily enough, actually one of the researchers that did the study that Carolyn was looking at. Our final point here is all about struggling well. Positive psychology's Chris Peterson was fond of saying that thriving people are good at struggling well. As we all know, life is full of challenges, particularly if we choose to set grand goals. But what separates people who don't have grit from people who do is often this issue of working hard and overcoming difficulties without losing focus, equanimity, or passion, and that is struggling well. If you want to cultivate grit, but you don't have a constructive relationship with discomfort, failure, or delayed gratification, it's imperative to find ways to make your peace with these conditions. One of the most intriguing findings in Angela Duckworth's research on grit is that high grit people hate hard work as much as those who don't have grit. High grit people simply accept hard work as the price that they must pay to get where they want to go, and so they find ways to do it. As the late boxer and humanitarian Muhammad Ali put it, I hated every minute of training, but I said, don't quit, suffer now, and live the rest of your life as a champion. So, if we're ready to thrive, if we're ready to accomplish our goals, if we're ready to chase our passion and our purpose, we need to learn to struggle well. But what does struggling well mean? Well, there are going to be challenges. There are going to be obstacles on the road to accomplishing our dreams. Struggling well is meeting those challenges, obstacles, and things that get in our way without losing our focus and passion. How do we learn to struggle well? Well, step number one is to set your big goals. Remember, we talked about before, what's the best possible outcome? Step number two is to set out on accomplishing them. Step number three is to find a way to make the obstacles worth it in the moment, overcoming the obstacles. Don't quit now, suffer now, and live the rest of your life as a champion. And of course, it feels a little bit like it's paradoxical. Happy first and struggling well seem like they don't go together very well, right? If I'm going to be happy, that must mean that I'm not supposed to be struggling, right? But happiness is a very deep concept. It's not necessarily sunshine and rainbows the entire time. As long as you feel like you're working hard, perhaps you're struggling, perhaps you're going through a difficult time, as long as you know that you're working towards something that's going to be fulfilling, or even something that's fulfilling in the moment, that's really where it's going to come from. That's really where grit's going to be cultivated, and that's where success is going to actually happen. This was Getting Grit by Carolyn Adams Miller. Thanks for being with me in this video, and I hope you check out some of the videos that we talked about inside of this one. A lot of really great books on the channel, and I'm happy to have you with me. See you in the next one.